Uchi and Soto. This is one of the first concepts you learn in Japan. Soto, or the outgroup, is where you start. Uchi, or the inside, is where you strive to be. Japanese society is said to be highly hierarchical, and this is evidence. Sometimes it can be a difficult fact of life to live with. My year studying abroad in Hiroshima, Japan, was filled with small routines. Every Tuesday, there was a Korean student who always asked me to tell him all kinds of things in English so that he could get language practice as we killed downtime and sipped green tea. It was in this way that I offhandedly mentioned to him that I used to play the flute. Though he often listened to me rambling without much reaction, on this day he perked up. He told me the jazz club on campus had a flute I could use, if I wanted. Together we went down to the old clubroom, tucked in the back of the campus. The room was cramped and full of Japanese students practicing. The sounds of 10, 15 instruments filled the room. As they played, they stared at me. I could feel the thick walls around their uchi. I bowed politely and took a flute to play. The first time they had me play, I froze on the solo. I'd never improvised before. I was a long ways from my comfort zone. What notes would fit in neatly with the community of sound that already existed? My fingers barely moved. I was tongue-tied. Though everyone was polite, I felt as if I had failed. I apologized and left, not knowing whether or not I should come back. Then, one day on the streets of our small town of Saijo, one of the guitarists from the club approached me. He smiled at me as if we'd been friends forever and asked, "When are you coming to play with us again?" It was small moments like these in which I felt I was allowed into a society where it didn't matter whether our hair colors, our languages, our cultures were different. The only thing that mattered was whether or not I could play and whether or not I would. I started to go to the clubroom in my free time and practice. Other members of the club were always filing in and out, using up all their free time to improve. Their diligence was awe-inspiring. These people would listen to me working on some part of some song, and then suddenly I'd hear it. Someone would be accompanying me on the piano, playing soft guitar riffs in the background, picking up a solo I'd abandoned. It didn't matter whether or not I could understand Japanese. The jazz that passed between us became a language. In these moments, I, too, entered inside that uchi space. There were days when I would feel as if I'd been left outside, but I always kept going. I would be sitting alone somewhere, and then someone would give me some headphones so I could listen to their favorite jazz piece. I would find that the flute I used was gone for the day, and someone would hand me their instrument. These things helped me continue forward. As my time in Japan drew to a close, the band I had become a part of was to participate in one last live performance. Just as we were about to leave, an MC halted us. Someone in the club had bought flowers for me and the other exchange student who sang for us. I was absolutely astonished. The person who had bought the flowers never spoke to us directly, but obviously there had been something, the music. It was like a key to some inside space.